hoping we corrected some of our problems from the last time we talked, right? Didn't we have some, like,
We'll just. We gotta wait for the,
not with you guys, with us.
I was like, what are you? Quite a way to start.
I know she likes everything recorded, so I'm not saying.
Yeah, for some reason I'm remembering we were
I
supposed
don't listen to her.
to, yeah, we were supposed to like have like people's names and.
No, we haven't, no, we could do better in that.
Okay, that's what I'm just
We're
curious.
supposed to, at our April meeting every year, we were gonna then tell them, give them the
Right.
authorized people.
Right,
Okay,
We all set?
we are all set.
So
Okay.
I can talk.
Yes,
Hold on.
please. Oh, I guess maybe,
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out to the Midco Solid Waste Corporation Board of Directors meeting. It's April 2nd, 2025, 6:35. We have a few things to get through tonight. First thing on the agenda, review and approve the January 26th, 2025 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
so moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, no discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Motion passed. It's important to note that we have two members missing tonight, Robin Tarantino from Lincolnville, Kristen Robinson from Polk, so we go to the attending member. Okay, second item on the agenda, public and director comments, and we need to please limit that, any comments to non-agenda items. Is there anyone that would like to address the board? Or is there any director that has something to say?
I deal with,
Exactly where your manager's report, probably,
what's that?
right? Aren't you gonna give a manager's report?
Yeah,
They probably just do it then, right?
okay, we can do that.
Well,
You do it.
Well, because it's a not, the public comment on non-agenda items is really for the public to come in and give a
Yeah,
thing,
absolutely.
Okay,
rather than the manager to,
okay.
I mean.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is our manager's report.
I thought that's where we were, but it's fine.
Here.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So anyway, is there any questions on the manager's report? Okay, one thing that isn't on here that we've been working on since the report was drafted was, we're currently working with setting up a point of sale service, system. So when you come into the gatehouse, it keeps track of all of the costs associated, all of the billing, all of the, keeping track of all the inventory, all the materials coming in, all the things that we are sending out. It's called Trash Flow. It has a bunch of modules that you can add on to it. One of them is a credit card component, which I think everybody probably would appreciate. So we're working on that, and it's a system made just for waste. It ties in with scale, and it's called Trash Flow. So we kind of have zeroed in on that finally. It's taken about a year, but we're there. And Vinny is working, getting that all together, and with myself, we're gonna try to get that up and running by at least July, I'm hoping.
Any other questions or comments on the manager's report? Obviously, we've had some maintenance done to our equipment over there. Has to be done every once in a while. But with minimal interruption.
Maybe one other thing, it's kind of hard to tell, but it was kind of the last photo on the manager's report. It's just showing the sewer bill. So at first glance, we're gonna need some more data, but it's looking like that pumping down of North Quarry has actually made some kind of impact on the amount of leachate we're pumping from the itself. So our bill was significantly less in the quarter that we had that all up and running. You know, this is just kind of circumstantial kind of evidence at this point. We need a little bit more data, but it looks like what we were trying to do may have been effective, and it's apparently our bill was almost half of what it was the prior quarter, so.
What's been the water level?
The water level then, it's high, it's at like 98,
I think I
99.
saw it was like, at or slightly above the target.
Yeah, it's slightly above the target of 98. But that's only happened in the past month.
That's what I said too.
Yeah, it was like pretty steady 90, I think it was like around 95, 96 for quite some time, and then just shot right up as soon as things thawed out. So, you know, the well itself, is still pumping, it's pumping about 32 gallons a minute. The old well, we have the new pump and well all installed. Right now, we're waiting on the variable drive that we're gonna tie into the new system. And hook it all up, and then we should be good to go. And I'm expecting to be able to pump significantly more when I do that, and. The objective is like in the springtime like this, we'll probably see a higher bill than normal, because this is in the springtime when we have a lot of rain and thaw. It's when we're gonna have to kind of pump a little heavy, and what I'm hoping is with the improvements or the pumping that we are doing in the other quarry, to maintain that kind of lower groundwater level, it won't make its way over. With any luck, we'll have lower bills. That was the goal.
Is there a float at the target elevation, or do you just monitor it? I mean, how, in other words, how?
We use a slope level indicator,
Yeah,
just one of those water sounding devices on tape. It's got a little electrode on the end, you send it down.
like a Solent or something,
Yeah, and then write it down, and we subtract the mean sea level.
right, for the
elevation.
elevation, right. So you control it with a gate valve? or-
We're talking flow.
Yeah.
That's on the variable drive, I adjust the hertz.
Okay, so you adjust it based on the water level you're measuring.
Yeah, right now it's just because of the old system, that old pump and everything is not really all that efficient. It's on 60 hertz all the time, and that's all we got.
Okay,
So we can't pump any more than 32 gallons a minute. That's why you're seeing the elevation go above the target level.
cool, thank you.
Anything else, Dave?
No, I think that's pretty much
You
it.
wanna touch on the YMCA?
Yes, so just the status report, we've kind of come. We found documentation that kind of supports the belief that the Wise line that goes through the facility that we believe is failed, is theirs. It's their right to use, maintain, and repair, the way the deed, the legal document was written. So there's no real dispute about whose it is at this point. I've talked with the manager at the Y, and they're working on getting 2 more quotes. I think they're meeting with their board next week to talk about how they're gonna move forward. And I think that it looks like we're kind of on a good track to get this repaired, so that we can do our repair and remove that safety issue we have associated with the elevation change by the containers.
Perfect. Thank you very much. If you don't have anything else, Dave, we've got some people here to present from Camden National Bank, Wealth Management. The floor is yours.
Well, it's great to see everybody again, and since there are some new faces, would you mind for our benefit, going around and just introducing yourselves?
Michael Thompson. Counter work for.
Greg Door.
Ken. Bill Bow, BOW from Rockport.
Sarah Smith from Hope. Are you with an H or not?
Yes, please.
So good, we've got 2 without H's at the office.
Beth Kowski, I'm the administrative assistant.
Kern Lake for the town of Lincolnville.
Allison McKellar, Camden.
Dave Sales, yeah,
And then are you part of this, or are you part of the?
I'm doing a presentation, but I'm Danny Solomon, I'm the rest of it.
Okay. So just some administrative items before I hand it over to Patrick to review the portfolio. I just wanted to make sure that the folks we have on the corporate resolution haven't changed in terms of who we're authorized to take direction from. So we currently have, Bertie Hanson. And Marlene Libby.
No, she passed away actually recently, yeah.
Oh, that's
No.
So
And then you, David.
that'd be correct, and there's a replacement for Marlene, I don't know if that would be the person who we put in that slot. That was,
Let's
Yeah, we
hold
can-
off on
we
that.
can-
That was a Jody request to have
Yeah.
Marlene on their own sick, but if we need to add somebody else.
So we at least have you two for the moment, and that is correct. All right, so do you want me to leave a corporate authority with you in case you want to add, you want to talk to Jody and?
Would you be able to just email that or, I mean, then I'll have it if we decide to.
We need to vote on that, also as a recommendation on that.
I mean, our bylaws kind of stipulate who the people are, but there's one part for the, you know, for the board, but then Marlene was on there because of
Yep.
the contract that we have with her. So
Okay.
I don't think we need to vote on it, but
That's
we
fine.
always could if you wanted.
Okay, that was it from an administrative perspective. Patrick, take it away.
For those of you I haven't met, I'm Patrick White Thompson, Senior Portfolio Manager at Camden Wealth. I've been working on this account since 2019. Just for a little context, this account was set up to fill in the landfill. And that's been kind of a moving target at times, you know, as we've gone along. But our preference, as far as timeline is under 10 years for this portfolio. And we are managing to the new municipal statute, which stipulates that we only invest in bonds and only high quality bonds. So this account is all fixed income. We do allow for about 5% cash. Cash is yielding just under 4.4% at this point. So if you turn to page 1, the overall returns to the portfolio over the last 12 months have been about 5.89%. And you know, the portfolio has been largely insulated from some of the things that you've been reading about in the news, just because it's all fixed income. All of our bonds do have a specific maturity, so we hold them until they mature, and then we receive the proceeds of the maturity, our money back, and we reinvest those proceeds along the yield curve where we find the most value. So what we're looking at now, the Fed just met mid-March, and the Fed, you know, is a large determinant of where interest rates are going, and they are pausing interest rate cuts. And they paused interest rate cuts in the March meeting, and their sort of outlook for interest rates going forward is very uncertain. So we have a lot of uncertainties right now, and at the Fed level, they're recognizing that, and I bring that up because at the portfolio manager level, we're very much dealing with the same issues. So the primary issue, you know, developing portfolio returns is what tariffs are going to do to the overall economy. Are they going to be inflationary? Are they going to be deflationary? So we're really in a position now where we just kind of have to wait and see how long they're going to last. They may only last a couple months. They may not last at all. So we're really weighing all of those variables, but at the same time, just sticking with the mandate that we've been given, which is that, you know, short to immediate term outlook as far as how far out we're going to invest the proceeds, and then adhering to the high quality bias that the state of Maine has us beholden to for this portfolio. And I'll just stop there and go over or see if you guys have any questions at this point.
How does this compare, the 5.89%, how does this compare to how other similar funds would be doing? I've had, I guess I'll try to state it in a different way. People have said before, oh, you guys should do this, move it over to here because, you know, they're offering this, and you know, I'm sure you're, and 5.89%, that's actually, I feel like that's higher than what I
think it's great.
it's pretty good, right? Oh,
So, yeah, so if you look at, you know, markets over 2025, we're up 23%, but we can't invest in the market. So with our mandate, we're in that competitive zone. So we're with these types of accounts, the utility is really the most important part. And so the utility for us is maintaining the capital, deriving some interest rate that we can, and also maintaining that quality bias. So I would say, in short, our other municipal accounts carry very similar returns.
And what about, how would you change or not change things if we were to say, that we want you to manage it, like leave a portion of it thinking in the 10-year range, but then another portion more like the 20 to 30-year range? Some of this, a lot of the fund is gonna be for perpetual care costs of the landfill after it's closed, and it's not expected. Since we initially set up the investment policy, that's changed a little bit. It used to be, we were always saying 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
Now it's 7 to, what is
It's
it?
12 to 13.
Oh,
12 to 13, okay.
Yeah.
So the, back
From
when
now.
we were initially having conversations with you folks, we were thinking of having actually kind of two funds.
right,
One which was for the capping of the landfill, and then the other one, which was going to be for longer term maintenance, so more like an ongoing endowment. And there is, and that you had potentially, I think there, if memory is serving me correctly, maybe it's not, Allison, yours is probably better than mine. Maybe we're gonna get a grant, or that there were other sources of funding that would allow you to have a broader investment portfolio.
Yeah, so it really boils down to the source of the funds.
mhm,
We work with scholarship funds. These are requests that are given over by an individual. Sounds like a similar mandate where it's in perpetuity. They give a certain amount for scholarships every year and they expect it to last forever.
mhm,
Those accounts are managed with much more equity, so equities period. So typically an account like that would be 70% in equities. But because the source of the fund is coming from a private source ultimately, as opposed to public funds, that gives us that leeway to be a little more creative in the way we're constructing our portfolios. Unfortunately, working with municipal accounts, the state of Maine, and understandably so, has developed very strict criteria to make sure that, you know, there isn't the probability of loss or the possibility of loss for these funds because they're coming from revenue sources that it's public money.
right. And at the time, we, in determining which pot it would sort of fall into, like property tax revenue sources, or you know, taxpayer revenue sources or non-taxpayer revenue sources, and depending on how that's and because, you know, both the town and Mineral Solid Waste can have funds that come from a different source that lets us act differently. We decided to interpret that really conservatively. There may be, we're just trying to get over the hurdle of like, let's at least get it invested, and we're gonna adopt the most conservative interpretation of whether the municipal review committee returns from that PERC stuff were to be considered taxpayer derived or not, or so at some point, if anybody is super, I was on that initial investment policy team, and if there's ever anybody on the board that really wants to take a hard look at whether some of those funds could be interpreted differently.
We had contacted an attorney down
Yeah.
in Portland when this account was first opened, looking on your behalf. You had asked us to do that, to
Mhm.
look into this issue. And at that point, at least where the money had come from, the impression was this was the mandate we had. So, and one of the reasons, again, that you wanted to set up a separate account, potentially, was that it allowed for real transparency, that it was really clear. These funds were derived from this, it's for this purpose, and thus it can be invested this way, whereas this is for this purpose, and
So would you say the only thing that would change the investment strategy would be source of funds, not timeframe?
So the time frame would change the investment strategy to a certain extent. But what we would be able to use would still be limited. So if you look on page 17, this is a map of the treasury yield curve. And the line in the middle is the current yield curve. So these are the yields that are available at all maturities for the US Treasury bonds. And you can see at the very front end of the yield curve, which is the sort of 0 to 3 months, which is the Fed funds rate, we're at 4.3. And if you go all the way out to 30 years, the yield is 4.5. So the change for your strategy we would be leaning a little further out on the yield curve just to kind of match the assets that we have to the potential liabilities or projects that you're working on. But our opportunity set is somewhat limited. So we're only picking up, you know, for instance, we're only picking up 30 basis point, 0.3% by going from cash out to the 20 years. So that still limits what we can do, but we would definitely shift the components within the bond ladder, the bond portfolio, to better match a longer term time frame.
But it's not a huge difference.
It's not going to be a huge difference, no.
So based on the time that I gave you, the 12 to 13 years, what's your projection, like theoretically where we would be? I mean,
But as far as interest rates go?
yeah, like total assets at the end of the term, let's say, what would be the goal here with the way, the strategy that you're using?
Gosh.
I mean, this is
That is,
kind of reason, so the reason I'm asking this is because, you know, we kind of know, we have an estimate of what Clearview would cost. And if we meet our target, you know, savings, you know, we would then take whatever, we would start maybe creating another account for the perpetual care piece of it or something of that nature, I would think.
The other thing is the town, you know, each of the 4 towns has funds.
Right.
Then
there's one other question I have is that, now you said that we're limited by the funds that we give to do the investing. What about the interest on the funds that we're earning? Does that fall into the same category? Is it governed by the same rules?
it is governed by the same rules, and it's a small enough portion that
It doesn't.
it wouldn't move the needle anyway.
Okay.
So in answer to your first question, on page 3, which shows the sort of cumulative total returns, on the income earned line, you can see $215,962. So the relationship has been in effect for 5.5 years.
Okay.
So you could probably, you know, consider maybe 400,000 or so of additional income over that time frame.
Okay, yeah, that gets us kind of about.
Maybe
About
500,000.
2.5.
Yeah. 2.5, 2 to 3/4. I mean, I think that closure will be about 3 million, you know, somewhere around there.
But when you take all of the funds, so when you take the funds that the towns have,
Yeah, we had more.
we've already surpassed the, you know, immediate closure costs.
So maybe what we should try and strategize is get a really hard estimate on closure costs. And then like we should set up probably an account or some type of an account for perpetual care.
What you just said, 100%. Yeah.
One of the things when we first were choosing between Camden National and several others, there was this whole thing about what the rules were. And all of the others said that we would have to tell them what was legal or not. And one of the things we liked about Camden National is they were willing to guarantee to us that what they were gonna do was legal and
Well, we have a fiduciary obligation.
I think they
on
all
your
do, but-
behalf, and,
yeah.
And so, yeah, and we take it very seriously, and, you know, obviously, it's an issue that comes up in our work with other municipalities as well, so it was something that not only served in terms of clarifying things in for this instance, but helped us to clarify things in other instances as well.
Well, this is great. I seems to be going well.
Yeah. I mean, we're in good shape, I think, you know, relatively in terms of, but the professional cares, you'll never have enough, right? So that's where we're really gonna shift our focus, I think, at this point, that, you know,
So it's
setting
just
up.
think you don't know what the needs are gonna be over
Well,
the super.
we almost do.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah, and, you know, depending on some moves that we make, they can be significant or they can be reduced. But we're working on those right now. Like one of the things, one of our biggest costs is treatment leachate, which we send to the treatment plant. We're trying to do that on site, which would reduce our cost significantly by about, you know, close to 200,000 to 300,000 a year, so you talk about that in the life of the forever, that's a big number. So we're
All the
trying,
revenue they can, then we'll get from.
yeah. But I mean, that's where you're gonna kind of make the biggest strides. By reducing those annual maintenance costs, and that's a set one that we can't change. So, you know, the other stuff is gonna be, we could kind of, Bill could figure this out for us. He's a master at this stuff.
Yeah, we need to go through all that.
Yeah.
But the numbers aren't like that different in terms of the investment strategy. It's not like, gosh, you guys are leaving all this money on the table. If only you started this perpetual care fund, then we could aggressively.
No, but it'll be nice if we can have our story sort of mapped out more
Right.
clearly so that we can say to them, here's X kind of what we need. It'll help them figure out whether it's, you know, short term, middle, medium term, long term.
Exactly.
So,
And I really think it's a good idea that with all the new board here, because we've had some changeover, and I don't think, is it? Probably none of you have heard this part of it or know it, right? So it's kind of good that we're
I
doing.
think,
We're always available.
Right.
And,
I think he had a question.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, and it's just, this is a novice question. Here on this first page, you've got the top holdings. And there are 11 of them. And then it says all others, which is 41% of the market value. And I'm just curious. How many others are there beyond the top 11?
Yeah.
Do you have any sense? Is that,
Yeah, it's listed, so,
Oh, is it?
it starts on page 6. And, it's actually broken down into three primary components, so you can see on the top. The investment grade bonds, so these are, actually corporate bonds, names that you're probably familiar with, Apple, Cisco, et cetera. And then the second column are the government and agency issues, so, you have your US Treasury notes. Towards the bottom, and then you have, agency notes, so the difference between them is, one has the full. Explicit backing of the US government, and the other one is the implicit backing of US government, but they're both government issued, bonds. And then you have the cash at the bottom, and you can see, that cash is yielding, if you go over to the, far right, cash is yielding 4.38%, so just the cash alone is generating about $3,900 in income.
Yep.
Which is pretty nice spread down. And I think that'll probably, I think if the Fed cuts rates twice this year, it's still gonna be around 4%. So, so cash is being productive.
Is there anything else that we should be trying to do, or anything that any moves or
I
changes? we need
mean,
to make?
not from my end, you know, definitely. We're just staying vigilant on what the interest rate situation and inflation is gonna look like. But I think, you know, if inflation stays below 3%. We're maintaining our purchasing power through, you know, through the duration with the yields that we're getting.
Is there anything else that you need from us? This actually, I would say, and I would think most everybody would agree, that we made the right decision going with them.
I certainly
With
think so.
this
They've
right
been very
here,
helpful and
It looks
responsive.
good. We have some variables that we don't know about yet, but we are gonna work on things like that, and I would assume if we get that information to you, like Bill said, gives you a better picture and maybe helps you make decisions.
Absolutely,
For
we
what we
are
need to do.
here to walk this journey with you, so, you know, I just always know we're a resource and a phone call or a walk away.
Yeah, we can even do some cash flow analysis. I mean, once we get a terminal value of what you're looking at for the landfill closure, we can sort of build, we have software tools that we can build kind of a plan to show you how you would get there, you know, based on the way you're tested.
Just a quick question, say we were to start salvaging a bunch of stuff from the landfill and it had lots of value. And we sold that all, and then we put that in the fund, is that still public money that would have to?
That's
That's
a
a
good
good
one.
question,
I
yeah.
might have to go back to that attorney,
Okay, just,
but I mean, and
it's not urgent,
that's
but
why I love my job every day. There's always something new, and I would never give a false answer. We would find out the answer.
Stick
Well,
around,
Danny here is
stick
gonna
around for our next
present
presentation.
there's gold at the transfer
But-
station.
That would be, you know,
Yeah,
Thank you.
well, and that brings up a whole different thing. If it really was minerals,
Oh,
yeah, is it, yeah.
what about
minerals are-
limestone?
Minerals are certainly in other states are governed by a whole set of other,
Mineral rights.
yeah, minerals are covered by a whole another. set.
Yeah.
Cause I used to have to deal a lot when I was out in Oregon. And I actually had an account that actually had some oil fields down in Texas. Texas is really complicated. Because there's like just the top crust of the earth. And then whether down to they're all different deeds, and yeah, who owns what?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, so what you're asking sounds like a fuck, but it would actually require us to do some, to make sure you're giving you the right.
No, I
Mineral rights are a
understand.
very different critter.
Is that the whole property rights of the bundle of goods? Is that kind of thing where you buy
So it's-
property, but that's what you're sitting on, it doesn't mean.
Well,
If you
yeah,
don't own
and with
to
oil,
the
it's,
center.
yeah, it's, so if you own this property here, but you're drilling diagonally under the
Oh.
surface and someone else owns this property here, who owns the lower part of it, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
most of the rules are just geared towards what, you know, the surface land
Right.
is.
So and when you're in those states, you really, Texas, New Mexico, all the laws are very different out there because they're dealing with all these issues.
And water rights.
And yes, yep, but it doesn't mean that those rules aren't existent here, it's just they don't come up as often,
I meant,
so.
just to clarify, like figuratively, gold, like, you know,
I mean, that's fair.
old growth
Is it
lumber.
the town's property, is it?
I mean, we are absolutely certain that we own the entire landfill. They've made that quite clear that we're responsible
Yeah.
for it. So,
So you're hoping there's a lithium thing through the.
no, like literally, so actually, if you would, like, literally, a lot of the things that get taken to the transfer station have value.
Yes.
And we're not necessarily recycling or extracting the things that have the most value, so like lumber, 2x4s, all of that stuff is very expensive, actually, so we're trying to look to optimize. Metal, we are already, for the most part, getting, but not necessarily all the different types of metal and sorting that all out, but,
There's no goal there, it's okay.
no, if there's gold, it's not from digging it up, it's from people, throwing it away and not knowing it's gold.
Eco Maine is mining their old landfill and taking out material out of the old landfill and to make more room and then sell the metal that they dig out of the old landfill.
Fascinating.
They're actually doing that right here in Portland. Yeah, but I would think that once something's deemed a waste, it has no value. So now you.
Then it's anybody's,
Then
yeah,
it's anybody, that's the way I would look at it.
sort of
So
salvage.
it wouldn't be a
rights.
taxpayer, it's really not a taxpayer resource or dollars, it's like a taxpayer liability that then gets. So there's
Yeah.
no risk of like having something and then losing a bunch in the stock market because it's already been deemed to be of less than zero value.
Yeah.
It's actually.
So in case you need that argument for the attorney when you
I
talk to
do,
them.
absolutely. Absolutely. But yes, if as that starts to percolate, let me know and we'll get some answers.
We'll get our picks and our shovels.
You
and-
betcha. We'll be get with you.
there any other questions for our presenters before we move on? All good? Perfect, thank you very much.
Oh, thank
All right,
you.
thank you. Thanks, yeah,
Thanks, Doug.
absolutely, thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Okay, our next item on the agenda, waste audit and reuse program development initiative. Overview and presentation by Danny Collins.
You want me to give kind of just a,
Yes.
Hold on, can you, I just
Yeah.
ask first, what are the AV needs for this?
I have HDMI, is that right?
Yeah, you want to have it into.
Where would you like me to?
you can come right here to me.
I mean,
You can.
I was wondering if we wanted to use that
Oh, there.
or this, but go with that, was fine.
I'm in order. So I'll kind of just give kind of the overview of what's happening here. So everybody here has heard me talk a lot about, we have to, just like with the investments, and reducing our costs to kind of help with the long-term costs of the facility, we always got to look at, reducing our operational costs. And, there's cost avoidance, which, and then there's prolonging the life of the landfill. And then, we need to do all of these things so that overall it costs us less and we can have more lifespan in the facility. One of the objectives is, we're putting a lot of capital and manpower into collecting recycling that has no value pretty much. And if we only put like a fraction of that into something that has a value, we could, theoretically make more money, but at the same time, reduce the amount of material that's being put into the landfill, which would lengthen our life of the landfill. But at the same time, it'll help us save more for perpetual care. All these things kind of work together. And lumber is one of those things, and we throw lumber away in the landfill all the time. So if we could save the lumber and other materials that are being thrown away either in the waste stream and the MSW or in the landfill itself, and somehow, recoup some kind of a revenue stream from that, or even a cost avoidance from it. Well, at the same time, reducing the cost of disposal or landfill space, it would be a win-win for everybody. So, I was talking with Danny about this a while back, and so we got together, we kind of put together this statement of work, what the expectations would be, and then I let Danny take it from there, and he kind of put together his work plan that he proposed. And it's kind of good timing too, because we're talking about this piece, and I don't want to steal this number or anything, but with tariffs going in place and lumber costs going up, it's only the timing is really good for this. It's only gonna drive any kind of salvage materials up higher. So this is Danny Solomon, and if you don't know him, he's one of these guys. He's a doer. He's proven it that he can do it, and that's why we're talking. And I have all the confidence in the world of his ability, and I want him to give you the presentation of how he wants to carry this all out and make it happen. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Dave. And thanks everyone for having me. So I'm gonna give you all just a little presentation of some of the work that I've done and some of the potential and what I'm offering here. So I just a little background about myself. I moved here to Midcoast, Maine from Chicago about 4 years ago. I spent 3 years, I moved here for a job that I left last year, which was working at the high school, this program, an innovation program called the Hatchery. And it was I sort of led it as a community-based design build program. So it was a very hands-on sort of curriculum. I had a hatchery apprenticeship program that I started, and a central component of that program, which is I think really unique to programs that are similar, that are sort of emerging at schools, is we only source materials from the region's waste stream for projects. And I coined that radical reuse. So I'll share a little bit about that work, some of the work that I did previously in the area of deconstruction and reuse, what I'm doing currently, and then I'll take questions as they come up. So my specialty is deconstruction work. So taking buildings down that would otherwise be demolished and landfilled and salvaging as much of the material as possible for reuse. And I was first exposed to this methodology when I was in upstate New York, living in Ithaca. I was frequenting Buffalo, New York, where I met this fellow, Michael Gaynor, who started a deconstruction and reuse nonprofit when Buffalo was going through a fast track demolition program. So a lot of Rust Belt cities sort of went through similar programs in like the early 2000s. Chicago, where I came from before this, went through the same thing. A lot of taxpayer money being used to tear down structures and landfill them. And so when he landed in Buffalo and read about this and did the math to think about how much money was being invested in an area that was already dealing with poverty and all these other important issues, and people across the street from these homes that were being demolished who like needed materials and couldn't afford them, he saw an opportunity to change things. So I did a little bit of deconstruction work with Michael, and I mean, we all know what demolition looks like, but deconstruction, there's so much innovation potential in doing this efficiently. And I think a lot of people, you know, understand intuitively the environmental importance of deconstruction, but they don't understand the economic value of it as well. So this is just one example of some projects I did with Michael. We saved 6 different gym floors from 6 public schools in the area that would have otherwise gotten thrown out. And so the way that this normally looks is you hire the cheapest labor that you can find. The floor gets cut up into small enough sections that they can get hand lifted and carried out and thrown in a dumpster. So it's incredibly backbreaking work. It takes, you know, 4 or 5 guys, maybe, you know, a week and a half to do. Instead, Michael very smartly came up with this methodology where we would cut the floor. I don't know if you guys know how floors are constructed for gyms, but it's a floating floor. So the finished flooring is on sleepers. So it could easily be cut like a cake almost into 6, in this case, 16 foot by 4 foot sections. We were able to find a forklift that we could fit through just barely the double door of a gymnasium. And it just took the 3 of us in this forklift a day and a half to get all of this material out of the gym. And that was the hardest part, was just kind of getting it out. But we saved these 6 gym floors. It was 60,000 square feet of total flooring. That's enough for 24 homes. Again, it was just the 3 of us and 1 forklift. From the time we stepped in the door to the time it was all on a semi going back to his store. And it was about the 3rd hours and fewer workers than demo. So not every deconstruction project looks like this. There are some that obviously take longer than demo, but this was one instance where, you know, innovation and thinking really thoughtfully about how do we get this material out here as quickly as we can pays off. This is what demo looks like. We all know that. There are a lot of cities right now and throughout the United States that are advancing deconstruction. There's sort of a growing movement. This example here is Portland, Oregon, which is probably the city that's furthest along with the deconstruction movement. It's a great job creator as well. This fellow, Shane Endicott, who was pretty instrumental in getting businesses started and has probably the largest deconstruction company in the city of Portland right now, has pointed out some of the benefits of it. So he's able to save about 85% of the components that make up a building, excluding the foundation. It creates 6 to 8 jobs for every 1 job that standard demolition creates. Also, you can see here what the environmental impact is, the equivalent of preserving 33 mature trees. We're saving 6,000 gallons of clean water. Like I said, this is a growing movement. So it started with Portland, Oregon. They actually established a deconstruction ordinance out there in 2016, which mandates that certain structures be deconstructed and not demolished. I am hoping that Maine can start to learn from that as we can grow businesses that will allow for this to expand. But here are some of the other cities that have sort of fallen in line. A few cities that have laws in progress. I think actually some of them are further along than when I made this presentation previously, but you can see that Maine is not yet on this list, but we are working on it right now. One of the cities that has recently also established a deconstruction ordinance is San Antonio, and they did this amazing report called Treasure in the Walls, which I'm happy to share, which breaks down all of the benefits, including economic benefits, and also some of the health hazards of not doing it this way. Since Portland established their ordinance in 2016, so in less than 10 years, they've saved about 2 million tons of materials going to landfills. So it's a huge impact. And they've also outlined how markets have responded to this. There's a growing market for reclaimed materials, and that's an important part too, is thinking about the educational side, that people understand the value of some of the materials we're throwing out, especially in older homes. All the old growth lumber that is constantly being tossed. There's even some research showing how it can help with the affordable housing problem as well, having these materials available and work back into the marketplace. So as I was shifting from being the hatchery coordinator at the high school to thinking about what my next move would be, which I'll get to in a minute, I decided over April break to visit some of these cities that have come really far in deconstruction and see what some of these businesses and nonprofits that have propped up look like. The Rebuilding Center, the first city I went to is Portland. The Rebuilding Center is one of the first nonprofits to form in Portland, and they still exist. And so they have an amazing storefront, all kinds of materials. It's sort of like our Habitat Restore, but like blown up, 100 times. Everything from lumber to furniture. They even have a wood shop in there to teach people how to use reclaim, because it's a very different sort of animal. And they also, just in the expression of the things that they have at the store, exemplify what reclaimed lumber, if you work it in, and all these objects that look like, and some of them are really fun. Even their railing outside is this amazing sort of metal working artists who use all sorts of elements that came from the landfill.
Is that Portland, Oregon?
This is Portland, Oregon, yes. But hopefully we can bring it to Portland, Maine too. Yeah, from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine. Northwest Deconstruction Specialists is Shane Endicott's deconstruction company. So I also just sort of looked at some of the deconstruction work they're doing out there. They are so efficient at it. So this little home, they were able to salvage, this is just a Google street view of it. I saw it when it was basically taken down, and they had all the materials sorted and ready to be taken to the store. This was like a day and a half of work. So they really had it down. And then there are also businesses that do the other side, which is like, how do we take these materials and clean them up and make them available to potential customers? So I visited Goodwood, again, just one example. So they, this is like really high end. Not every business they have all different kinds of potential customers, but this was like taking these old, often Douglas fir 2x4s, resawing them to turn them into like tongue and groove flooring, siding, all sorts of other objects and furniture pieces and things like this. A really interesting operation out there. And they actually used to do both sides. They did deconstruction for a while and then shifted just to focus on sort of the added value products. I also visited Repurposed Savannah. So I went out to Savannah, Georgia, because I really wanted to see what these women were doing. So this is a women-led nonprofit. Deconstruction is also a really amazing pipeline for the trades. And because it's sort of this new thing, a lot of folks who are, historically not, welcomed into the trades are kind of leading the charge. So this is a really good example of that. But what was interesting to me about Repurposed Savannah and what I'm trying to do here is they specifically are targeting historic buildings that aren't able to be preserved. And so not only do they save the materials, but they also record the history so it can't get lost. So they go into the homes and they work with some companies to actually catalog and 3D scan and photograph the buildings, and they put together an archive of the building's history, which they keep on their website. And they also tag all the materials so customers know, oh, this came from this place, and they know the entire sort of history of the materials. And so one of the points that Dave made about this being sort of a ripe time for this, when COVID hit and material prices skyrocketed, their prices did not move. And all of a sudden, contractors were knocking at their door because, they didn't have any other options, and so I think a similar thing might be happening in the next few years. Here's just an example. They have a huge space, so this is their store. I don't know if anyone else has been to Savannah, Georgia before, but they also had been sourcing from Public Works some of these beautiful like live oak limbs and things that were coming down, or maybe came down from a storm, and milling those up and turning them into tabletops and
Did
things like
everybody
this.
see over there? From that.
Oh yeah!
activated-
Whoa! I didn't see that.
Wow.
Amazing.
Lake Beach ash tree. Oak tree.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that. So yeah, they have everything from, again, lumber to, masonry to windows, to even solar panels, that were getting taken down, so. And they also were doing some value-added work as well. I went to a wine bar where they produced some of the tables and other features, and they were cataloging everything where everything was going, so really interesting work. So getting to the home base and what I've done here. Again, I worked at the hatchery for 3 years, and I started to introduce deconstruction practices in the community to students. So this was the first one that we did. A part-time art teacher reached out, heard about the work we were doing, and said, hey, my deck needs to be demolished. Would you be interested in deconstructing it? So I said, yes. We went out there. It was me and 4 other students on a Sunday, and in half a day, we took her whole deck apart. I was also working with Habitat throughout the time I was, teaching at the school pretty closely. So Tia Anderson had, set up this program at Habitat to help elderly in our community with, basic sort of house upgrades, like building new stairs and wheelchair ramps and things like this. So I offered to sort of set up a program where students could work on projects like that. So this is a woman, Sandy, who lives in Rockland in a trailer home, and she needed a wheelchair ramp and a new deck and stair that would be more comfortable for her. So we took the old deck and we used that material to build her a new deck. And over the course of a bunch of weekends, all sorts of students coming out to help do this, we were able to build her a new deck with a wheelchair ramp. It's really hard to tell that this was all reclaimed material, but it was. But we also analyzed everything that we did afterwards. That was part of the program as well, sort of doing the research behind it. So we broke down the cost. And this is probably a conservative estimate, but just for the cost of materials, had we bought everything new, it would have been about $3,300. But because we salvaged materials from a bunch of different sources and incorporated them, and only bought about $500 of new material for things like the posts and the stringers and structural pieces, we were able to save $2,800 just on the material savings. And I also compared that to how many volunteer hours it took to put this up. And so had I paid students $20 an hour, it still would have been less than the amount of money that we would have paid just for the materials. So
Wow.
this is just one example of the cost benefit of doing things this way. I worked with Dave on this project. Does this look familiar? So this is the materials that came off of our harbor, which I think Dave was looking for someone to take on, and I was willing to take on quite a bit of it. So he generously dumped it outside the hatchery at the school, and we got to work and we took it apart and de-nailed it and took care of it and thought about things that we could make or remake with the materials. So we built a series of picnic tables and what we call buddy benches. This is something that like Hammond you might see. They sell these a lot. And cleaned the boards up, painted them. And again, looks like new. It was really easy to just take the boards, which had, when they were face up, some cracks in them, flip them right over. The underside was like totally clean. And these went back to public use. I think a few are on the Camden Harbor right now and positioned elsewhere throughout the area. And then the buddy benches ended up being the senior gift because the bus loop at the school didn't really have much seating. So we were able to provide that.
Oh, those came from the public landing wharf?
Yeah.
I've seen those when I passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the destroyed wharf after the storms, that's all.
Yeah, public landing along the water.
Mhm. And then, of course, we like to celebrate the work that we did. So we had the jazz band out there before everything sort of got dispersed. We also did some work with, so like the apprenticeship program I did at the school. It was really about apprentices learning to then mentor new students and younger students. So we worked with the middle school. They were doing an outdoor classroom. And so rather than buy a bunch of plastic furniture or whatever they would have done, we decided to use some of the material from the wharf and teach them how to build Leopold benches. So this is also from that as well. Breaking down all of the different projects that we did, salvaging materials that have otherwise been thrown out in just my first year and a half, adding all that up, it was over $50,000 worth of material. It was probably over 100,000 over the course of 3 years. So again, just another example of the cost and benefits of doing deconstruction work. Out of all the hard work that we did on these smaller projects and the buzz that the program had created, I started to receive calls and things about like full buildings to take down. So I took a huge risk last year in accepting one of these. So we ended up taking this house down. This was a house in Camden on Brookside Street, which is like a side street off of Belmont Ave. Jan Leff, who's the owner on the left there, reached out and said, hey, this house that I own, which we're going to rebuild new, is going to come down. You know, I heard about your program. Maybe you'd be interested in saving the floor. I said, what about the whole house? Okay. So we got to work and everything was done, you know, by the book, really safely. So fortunately, because this house was so old and had been vacant for 40 years, a lot of the hazards that typically are part of, you know, taking down homes, there was no asbestos present, which was amazing. There was no insulation in the walls, so we didn't even have a lot of that sort of thing to deal with. There was lead paint, so on the siding, so that was one thing that we disposed of and made sure that we didn't, you know, get flakes and put these blue tarps down and so forth. But even in Portland, Oregon, they're able to reincorporate materials with lead paint and they'll salvage that. I just wanted to play it really safe. Did the dirty work of taking down the plaster and lath. So we suited up and again, using a pretty innovative method that I learned from a friend of mine, because there were site guys coming in right after us to redo the foundation, we talked with them and rather than have to like bag all the plaster and like lift it out, you know, and put it in a dumpster, we just cut continuous holes through the floor and put bulk bags in the basement and just swept it, you know, like a chute into the basement so that could just get lifted and taken out, saved tons of time.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was, I'm doing that every time from now on. We saved.
What did you do with the lab?
So yeah, I'll get to that. We did save most of the lath. So that's us kind of sorting through it and deciding what to save. The bricks were also saved. I'm doing a project with Andy White at Sweet Tree. We might use it for the base of a pizza oven that we're going to do at Sweet Tree School. And then this is not how deconstruction necessarily always works, but the method that I learned from my friend Michael Gaynor is to in order to get off the site quicker, so you're not slowing down the contractors that are lined up after. You can actually cut the building into sections, bring it down to the ground safely so you can deconstruct it on the ground. So we use this method, you know, obviously there's disadvantages to doing this because you might be cutting things a little bit shorter than you might want them. But this was a way that we could accomplish this over just weekends. Again, I was full-time at the school, so it was just like a weekend project basically. But students were like super jazzed about it. Some of their parents came and helped out. I was a little nervous about how parents would react to this, but most of them were like super grateful and wanted to pitch in even to do some of this work with us. Pretty surreal images of the building coming down. And yeah, all of this was amazing old growth lumber.
So can I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead.
So normally how they do this is they come in with an excavator.
Yeah.
And they just.
Yeah.
And they crunch it all up and then they put it in a truck or a roll off and then they bring it up to the landfill, which maybe sometimes we don't even see because we have no flow control here. And then it ends up getting dumped. And then we run over and break it up in little pieces, takes up space.
There's a big house just around the corner from me, last month, all that,
Yeah.
and big dump trucks lined up the street
Exactly.
a day and a half. And I don't know where it all went, but.
Went to someone's pit, probably.
Yeah.
That will be the next step in all this is
Yeah.
maybe flow control, but we will.
So here's the house coming down. And fortunately, but yeah, one of the students, so everything that we didn't use, I donated to Habitat. So they took all the doors and windows and so forth. And then fortunately, one of my students that year who just graduated, he was a senior, Owen Morong, his father owns Yachting Solutions, which is right by the school. And he was very supportive of what we were doing. So he let us stage the materials there. And we would just take sections to the school as we needed them to deconstruct over time. So this is what it looked like after we separated all the boards and denailed them. And just in the spring, sort of the last stretch of my time there, started to work with students, learning about different things we could build with the materials, getting to know them. I had a bunch of hockey students who needed a hockey stick rack for their locker room, so why not? We also built, things like this. This is a wedge table, I think it's called, for ceramics. So it's a way of like recycling clay faster. You pour a plaster slab and then through capillary action, it'll dry out the moisture to get it to the right moisture content so you can rework old clay. Built a fishing shack for two students who really loved ice fishing that fit in the back of their truck. Tables, electric guitars, more stuff for hockey. We're also using broken sticks from the hockey. There's like 2 benches if you go to the MRC where we worked in some of the broken sticks, which was really neat.
Yesterday changing my shoes.
Yeah, there you go. And musical instruments and all sorts of stuff. And then this was the last section from the house before we deconstructed it, and we had a band perform, and they named themselves the Deconstructed, and they are still performing together. It's really cool. Okay, so since leaving the school, I started an LLC called Second Story Builders. Second Story Builders, this is sort of the short pitch, but the idea is to advance circular construction practices in our area. Not only by doing deconstruction and offering material sales, but doing design build projects with those materials to showcase what we're otherwise throwing out and how beautiful it is. So right now I'm working on a project that will be opening very soon, the Villager Cafe, where the Bagel Cafe used to be. So this is going to be a newspaper owned and operated cafe by the Midcoast Villager. And it's meant to be a community space where they can host events. I think they're going to have a catering service out of there as well. And again, it should be opening like mid-month. And so they hired Second Story to build a lot of the sort of feature elements of the cafe, and all of them are using materials from this house. So you'll get to see very soon what that looks like, but I'll give you a preview right now. I've employed a lot of students. They're getting paid to work with me. So I'm continuing to work with the youth on this. I think it's important that we're training the next generation of tradespeople and like green building practices.
Question, is the denailing all and?
You can do some mechanized with like a pneumatic tool as well, but for the most part, yeah. I mean, you can get pretty quick at it too. So we're building, the tabletops using the old rafters and joists. And to your question about the lath, we use it for the wainscoting in there. We just finished that today. It's beautiful. Literally, like everyone that's walked in the space has commented on it, like from, all walks of life. Like the contractors are like, oh my God, we're throwing all this out at like a job site. Maybe we should hold on to it. And the old heads from the newspaper, like, oh, that's the way we used to do it with the wainscoting. So it's bringing a lot of people together.
How did you join it? Just butt it up against each other?
Look at that.
So it got skim planed on the plaster side to get rid of the plaster. And then we ripped it to a uniform length and chamfered the edges to give it a nice shadow line. And then just, you can see here, just put a coat of like water-based finish on both sides. And then this is just a tabletop that just recently got finished. That's going to be the coffee station. And that's all the sheathing boards from the house that were ripped and glued up. And the bar and the register are also going to be sort of similar treatment. So that's my work. The other thing that I wanted to just kind of mention is I have a really amazing secret weapon. This woman, Sarah Battiali, I've been working with pretty much since I landed in Maine. I kind of cold called her as I started the program at the high school, and she's been incredibly supportive. And she's out in Portland, Oregon. She was instrumental in helping the city pass the deconstruction ordinance, which is the first of its kind in the country. And since then, she's actually written a book called Breaking It Down that is helping other cities form similar legislation. And so she's doing consulting work with various cities to advance those practices there, including like Baltimore right now. I think New York City she just started a conversation with. But she's also right now writing a new book that is talking about the other side, like basically the monetary value in reclaimed materials and practices. So she's hoping to actually devote a chapter to some of what I've been doing here. And I would love to put Camden and Midcoast on the map in this. So that's all I have. I'm happy to take questions if you guys are interested in learning more. Yeah.
3 things. One, is the hatchery still a thing?
Hatchery is still running.
Good. 2, I would like your phone number because we've got a carriage house on our property that is
Okay.
starting to come apart.
Perfect.
And it's got good component parts.
Okay.
So let me talk to my husband, but I want your phone number.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that occurs to me is that I'm blanking on the name, but out on Route 90 in Rockport, there's a school for wood craftsmanship.
Oh yeah, the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship.
Yeah. Can you get some of those folks to use your wood?
Yes.
That could be really cool.
So yeah, so actually, funnily enough, I did that program, the summer intensive, like, I don't know, 12 years ago or something, one summer, which was my like real introduction to this area, and I fell in love with Midcoast when I came here. Yeah, well, I did that program, and then I went and
Life happened.
life happens, and then I wound up here again, and I'm really happy to be in this area because of that program. Yeah, my lead instructor for that program is Aaron Fidarco.
So teach with him at the watershed school.
Oh yeah, yep. Aaron wanted to bring me in to teach a course there, working with reclaimed materials and also doing sort of some community-based work. And right now the school doesn't enroll youth, so we're hoping to also maybe find ways to get young people opportunities to work there. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah, honestly, before I read this part of the notes that Beth sent to us, I was thinking today that I wish more of our students knew about jobs like the ones that, like what you're doing. When I look at, the intelligence that you bring to this and the global perspective and how you're pulling things together from, public works to wastewater to the dump. And then to add this on top, I mean, the opportunities for our kids that are kind of looking at their future going, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear this from my kids
Sure,
on
yeah.
a regular basis. The ability to do something like this is amazing.
Yeah, and so part of what I'm proposing, which is in here, is a former colleague and hopefully lifelong collaborator, Jude Massour, who teaches the AP research class at the high school.
Yeah.
Her students need to do like some community service once they finish their AP research project that is in the research field. So I'm hoping to involve them in doing some of the work and data collection at the transfer station as part of that.
Was she ever in the counseling office at the school, or, because I knew that name as soon as I read it, but I don't remember.
She was heavily involved in the watershed school, and plenty of other things before that.
And then over at Atlantic Academy.
Yeah, at Atlantic Academy, yeah.
So the idea here, Danny, is to cut off these materials before they get to us, right?
Well, I think we gotta start like at the very beginning.
That's the question, I'm trying to.
So like any business model, right, or any kind of business venture, you wanna kind of collect data and see what the potential is. So we really wanna execute this in a way where it's a phased in approach, we want to evaluate. And then,
Yeah, so the first part, which is gonna be a big part, is just data collection, so being on site at the transfer station.
Right.
Cataloging what's coming in, reporting that, and getting a sense of what materials are coming in at a quantity where it makes sense to intercept them, and then coming up with some proposals of creative ways that we can create a program to intercept those programs and pilot that.
right, you know, that it's the devil's in the details with this stuff, so. So first you have to say, okay, what treasures are coming through? Is it wood? Is it fixtures? Is it? It's all kinds of things, and we want to kind of evaluate that and know like how much of each thing there is. And then develop like a systematic way of collecting it all that doesn't like interrupt the whole facility. But and then another way of like marketing that material and moving it from that location to another location to use it.
I can almost see it, and I'm seeing it a little differently, which is why I was sort of noodling through my head here, is if you see the streams that are coming in, chances are, by the time it gets to us, and this is just a question, it's already busted up pretty good.
So I want to answer that, so.
So my thought is, if this is we're the location
Mhm,
where you can quantify
mhm.
how much is getting created throughout the town,
Right,
right?
well, there's a lot more that's getting created throughout the towns, and I don't want to scare anybody, but I want, this can go very deep, okay, and. You know, we have a huge commitment here with running this facility, and it's a necessity for 4 communities, right? So there's things that you would glean after doing a study like this. You'd find that, okay, we're not probably getting all the material coming into the transfer station. So then we look at, all right, what are we gonna do about that? We're, you know.
Some of the good stuff might not be coming.
Right, so the way I see that, if I had like a magic wand and I could just, or I was the czar of all 4 towns, I would say, okay, we're gonna have ordinances within our towns that basically says, if you're gonna demolish a building, you need to get a permit. It needs to be deconstructed first, unless there's a reason otherwise why it can't. And then there'd be a method of collecting that material and creating a flow kind of control ordinance, where if the owner of the material is gonna dispose of it, it would have to come to the transfer station. This isn't uncommon for cities and towns to have flow control for trash, because when you set up the infrastructure for a facility, towns are making a commitment and to pay for this, and you have like kind of the ability to kind of dictate kind of how people do this stuff in their communities.
I am totally with you.
Right.
This is where my head is going.
So we find out, okay, we're not getting all this, Casella's going in here, and this guy that just smashes stuff up and puts in the sand pit, that gets rid of all that. Now we're kind of controlling how it's taken apart. Danny's gonna be dealing with it as it's coming into the facility, but I see this after we show that these kind of things can be done, we expand our oversight, Midcoast Solid Waste oversight to all the communities. Because we have leadership from all 4 communities, and we have the ability to have those people in each one of those communities establish rules and govern how this stuff is gonna be handled. And it's only like a responsible way to do it, to avoid smashing it all up. And it's a liability when someone's not doing it correctly, because now they're destroying it, and now they're putting it in landfill, which is taking up landfill space, which is costing us money.
Well, that's the benefit to us, I think.
I think it's a benefit to everybody.
Well, yeah, I say us, I think
Yeah,
collectively,
yeah.
we extend the airspace.
Right,
Well, and it's the idea would be not just to extend it, but to create a revenue source. Because the landfill is gonna have to be cared for forever, and even after it is, right now, landfill's a revenue source for us. But there's gonna be a point when we can't add anything more to that, but we're still gonna have to take care of it. And so if we can have a better system for bringing in everything and allow there to still be a revenue source.
But is the vision, so from and this is a question, not a statement, okay, and so what I'm trying to understand is, to me, if we figure out what's going in, then you say to people, all right, so much of this, 50% of it, whatever, can be deconstructed and reused, it never has to come here. Okay, and so are we gonna get into the reclaimed lumber business, or are we simply going to say, you can't bring that here, until you get your permit to wreck your place or deconstruct it, whatever. And then you have to comply with that rule that whatever you put in the landfill has gotta be approved, that it can't be.
I
part of
don't-
the-
I know Danny's gonna help us evaluate.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say
Yeah.
at this point until we look at
We
the
gotta look-
landscape.
But that's where I'm seeing is
Yeah.
the,
We'd be crazy
I-
to give up the entire revenue source, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more about ultimately like creating like simple systems, like systems thinking about how that stuff could be intercepted. And how, yeah, it can be turned into a revenue stream. You know, Sarah's done a lot of work actually with transfer stations out in Portland and the state of Oregon. You know, creating a system, for example, of like for contractors that have excess materials, to you know, get those in containers and get
you're
those
actually
sold.
using the transfer station.
Yeah, so they become almost like a hub, yeah, but and so as long as, you know.
As opposed to your buddy's side yard.
Right, so once people know, okay, well, rather than have to deal with this ourselves, we can, you know, as long as it meets these criteria, we can get these materials somewhere else and not have to worry about them. Then the transfer station benefits because they can be the ones, you know, selling those materials off or whatever it is.
You know, depending on how it all goes, you can incentivize this by saying, you know, if you wanna smash it all up, you're gonna pay a lot more. If you wanna take it all apart, or allow us to kind of capture it, you could probably pay a lot less.
Right, this makes it further.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea.
And it doesn't, it won't necessarily just be lumber. I mean,
No,
I was
it's
just using that
It's
example.
gonna be all kinds of things,
Yeah.
we just don't know what those things are.
Yeah,
But it's gonna be things, sorry.
So I volunteer at the restock, twice a week. And there's a piece of this that I don't know how you sell it, but everybody involved in this project has fun
mm-hmm,
in a way that just demoing a building with a huge backhoe or something is just not fun. It's just work. But all of this projects, everybody that's doing it
mm-hmm,
is giving meaning to their lives
mm-hmm.
in a way that is not, and so then it would be valuable if you could find a way of making sure you insert that in your
Absolutely.
presentation,
Okay,
because
yeah,
that's the best part.
mhm. I totally agree.
I get wrecking stuff is fun.
Well, two thoughts. The first one was when you were talking, I was thinking, okay, these are big cities and I can see why she's going for the big cities because that's where you have big impact right away. And we're kind of like this tiny little minnow in a very small pond. But how cool would it be if we could get the 4 towns that are part of this organization to lead the state?
Mhm.
You know, we could, and then thinking about some of, shall we say, my conservative and thrifty fellow civic-minded citizens in Hope, they're, you know, the people who are in this, you know, that we're sitting here going, yes, this is a great idea. I love this. This is good. This is good in so many different ways. But I'm thinking of, you know, one guy that I respect completely, who is about a polar opposite of, anyway, but the way to sell it to him is to say, this is going to reduce the town of Hope's costs
Exactly,
long term.
yeah.
Exactly.
And
That's
so we've got to make sure that in addition to all of the really good global reasons for doing this,
Yeah,
that we can get the people who are gonna complain about government overreach and too many more regulations and blah, 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 see the dollar signs that will help with their taxes.
What
I mean, from my experience, like anyone's ideology, like you can
Yeah,
make a case for this and
Yeah.
have it aligned.
What I would say is I would go to each town and say, look, you guys are all on the hook for taking care of this landfill,
Yeah.
okay? And if you wanna not have to take care of it immediately, this is your way of dealing with that.
yeah.
Because we're gonna lengthen up the landfill life. And we're gonna be able to save for a longer term for perpetual care. And this isn't gonna be a burden to you in the near future. That's how you sell it, because
Mhm.
it's only gonna benefit everybody if there's rules in place that kind of make this stuff so that it can be at least partially captured before it's disposed of. some of the material. That's how you sell it. It really is. I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, and people, most people will be okay with it, I think, you know, I mean, they're not, no one's not gonna be against this.
And also, Greg, to your point, like, when people see the fun and, you know, like the deconstruction project we did, which was on, you know, a side street, so that we weren't there wasn't a ton of traffic. But everyone stopped and admired it and saw what we were doing, and we're just like blown away. And the one that I'm doing very soon, which is gonna be this mid-month, is on Chestnut Street, so that's gonna get a lot of attention. It's a house from 1800 that would otherwise be getting demolished, so.
I mean, the other thing, I think, not, the ordinance part would be something that we would consider and talk about
That's like,
later
Yeah,
on,
this
would
is-
not
this
be.
is-
That's
Because
beyond.
right now, I mean, I think it's important to recognize that, like, that right now, we, for years, have been prohibiting people from salvaging at the transfer station. There is already, even if you take away all the talk about the things that aren't coming to us, that we want to make them come to us and all that stuff. A lot of our community members have already recognized that there is value in what's being thrown away, so much so that we've had to regulate. Like, you have to stay away from the demo bin. I mean, this is the issue that I decided to join the board for, really. There are people, Chuck Berry will tell you he learned his entire living from the dump, you know, everything from figuring out that, oh, this doll actually is worth something. This, you know, iPad only needs a replacement battery, you know, everything like that. So I think people inherently know that there's a lot already that is not, you know, that's being wasted. And so to start with just, this is what's at our facility, and try to prove, you know, with numbers and data, what we already like intrinsically know to be true, like, hey, there's this much value. Ideally, I would love to see you actually try to grab some things throughout this and sell some things and try to, you know, make sure that people can see this isn't just a pie in the sky conceptual.
yeah,
Yeah, and even if it didn't work and we capture, I'm just saying, if, let's say it was only marginally successful. And we've only found like 2 items, let's say, it's gonna be 2 items that we pulled out of the waste stream that we're gonna make money on that we're not gonna throw away. It's gonna do better than that.
So what is your, so it says project will be completed by January 1st, so what's the total timeline? When do you want to get going? And how much? What are we talking about?
Can I talk about the funding part of it? So
Yeah,
you were involved in it, they weren't involved when all this went on.
we had a quick conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't remember how many years ago, about 4 years ago, when our contract with PERC, was it? Was it EcoMaine? Was it EcoMaine? We were going to EcoMaine, and basically we were taking our trash and trucking it to Portland, and in between us and Portland, there was all kinds of people that were taking their trash and were sending it north to Norwich Walk. And it was just like it's just like inefficient, right? And we were doing it because it made us feel good that our stuff was going to an incinerator, so we're like, oh, you know, we're sending our stuff to an incinerator, but it was like twice as far as the landfill. But meanwhile, this other community was having to go twice as far and send it to the landfill, because that was the only alternative they had, because they only were able to take so much waste at EcoMaine. So if you didn't get in, you were out, you had to go somewhere else. So we said, that's kind of like, that doesn't make much sense for us to do this just for the sake of saying we're going there when it's, the trucking cost is twice as much. Or, you know, the distance was twice as long. So we said, you know, why don't we just go to Norwich Walk where it's a lot closer? It was cheaper for us to do that too. That was the other thing. And then the savings that we were gonna see between where we were going and where we're gonna be taking it. We said, let's put that money aside instead of a fund to do exactly what we're talking about here as a way of reducing our waste stream at the facility. And we haven't really made a lot of progress on it. So we've probably gone 3 years without really spending a lot of money, and we did give Danny actually a little bit of money in a grant for a planer a couple of years ago for the high school. But I think we're putting,
Approved the user.
right. I think we put away $20,000 a year in this reserve fund just for this, and I'm thinking the $20,000 is roughly what we're looking at for having him do this project, and that's kind of where we're at, I guess. Answer your question.
And call it a grant.
And-
Is that a word?
No,
Well, in the
Okay.
sense, it's actually a contract,
Contract,
Okay, Okay.
because
he's giving us deliverables.
in some ways, it's a grant, you can make them. Whichever, whatever makes you happy, if it makes a difference.
Yeah, so, I
But it
mean,
really is a
I'm just.
It really is a contract because he's doing the work. In other places, it was gonna be, the idea was we might give money to groups that were doing work completely disassociated with the facility. But in this case, it's like a contract for work at the facility.
so we get somebody to come in, evaluate the whole process for, I mean, for first part of the summer and then into the winter months a little bit, roughly.
I'm hoping to start this spring.
Yeah.
Go, yeah.
And then collect the data, assemble the data, then create a report with the findings of what was coming into the facility, what was salvageable, and how to handle it. So that's what the money would pay for.
You talk about the stuff's going with the scale, basically, up to the land.
Everything coming into the facility, everything.
They're not just the landfill.
How does that, how do you envision that happening? I'm just wondering, like, as a person driving in with my little truck or whatever,
Mhm.
I got shit that's gonna go in these different bins. Other employees or in the group at the gate, like looking at what they're there, or
Yeah, so it's gonna be a combination of myself, some of the staff that I have through this business, and then also, like I mentioned before, the AP research students
Yeah.
who are gonna have this like time where they need to do something like this anyway. So we're gonna come up with a process of, recording that and documenting it and analyzing it afterwards.
I mean, I'm thinking,
Probably
So that's why I kind of want to start soon,
Yeah, I'm
because
wondering
before
how-
the school year ends, I really would love to get the students involved.
I think a big part of it
They're
is.
not digging through
is that
everybody's
the
trash every
gatehouse.
time, like,
oh, no,
if
but let's stop.
there's a privacy concern, I can't tell the reason you're asking.
Right, I was exaggerating slightly, but
I think we'd have people like stationed at the gatehouse. I think you can have people stationed in the light.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're gonna go to points where things are disposed
Yeah.
of, so that we can visually see what's going through and talk to people and get some information.
I think it's an awesome idea. I'm just trying to look at naysayers and like, oh, it takes 20 minutes longer to get through the lines now because.
Well, I mean,
And I'm
Jeremy
not
has to like
And maybe.
see what's anyway, so I don't think it's gonna
We'll
take
hand
much
out
longer.
cheese to all the whiners.
Oh, good.
They are supposed to be, I mean, the gatehouse is supposed to already be checking, what do you have?
Yeah,
This,
exactly.
this,
I
washing
don't think it's
machine.
gonna add too much.
No.
To that, he's gonna be there anyway.
Yeah,
This is already a guy checking it, and if they're just checking the same thing.
looking at it, in a slightly different way, but
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, people come in and they know they have something they don't want to throw away, so they offer. A lot of it's like, I don't wanna do this, so.
That is a big part of it. There's so many people that come, like, reluctantly, like, oh, I couldn't find anything to do with this, and I've brought this to the transfer station when they feel. That's why you see people dropping things off at the
Yeah.
swap shop all the time, even if it's not open.
I can ask a friend of mine who lives in Bowman. They have a facility, unlike our swap shop, which closes down in winter. And, I don't know if it's the official or unofficial name, but I know it as the Barn of Opportunity. And it's an old barn and, she's got a crate and barrel table that looked brand new when she picked it up from inside that place. And so, I was thinking, a risk on that, if this happens, and before one of our recent meetings, we were talking about, the places that landscaping where you've got the topsoil and the bark and the gravel and the sand. Come up with something like the corner of opportunity or something, names to try and sell it to people.
I do envision big scope picture. The transfer center becoming the spot where all that happens.
I think it makes more sense
Potential,
to do that
yeah.
and then to collect, I mean,
And I'm
honestly,
saying that in a positive tone.
I agree with you. I think that this is a much more worthwhile venture than collecting butter dishes and,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? We're not getting.
Old plastic
Yeah,
stuff.
the consumer take back. New law that's coming through, we have to do it because, right, we don't have to, but that's one of the reasons why we're gonna probably continue to do it. But it makes more sense to put a bigger focus on this than that. There's more gains.
Or not, not quite as many items, like reducing to part board and a few,
Yeah, we might
not.
collect the things that are actually, there's a lot of like energy that it takes to make them and they have value. Those are the things you want to collect. I mean, I'll be honest with you, 1 through 7 plastic basically doesn't get us any money. And,
Except for two.
it takes up a lot of space. It's a lot of work. I mean, if I started calculating the money we have into collecting that stuff, it'd be scary. And it has no value.
No, but two has value, doesn't it?
I mean, it's very marginal value, and then when you send it off, depending on the market. People don't even really recycle it, they tell you that they're recycling it, they give you $1 or $2 a ton for it, and they burn it or they throw it away.
That's the 3 through 7, I don't know if that's fair to say, but one.
I said one,
Magazine 2 days.
3 through 7 is bad, but
I'm just saying, in general, 1 through 7 plastic, 2's got value, cardboard's got value. Tin has value.
the mixed paper is pretty bad, isn't it?
Yeah, mixed paper's not.
Zero.
They're getting picky. is what-
They're getting picky
Like
and it's,
the newspaper and magazines, they're now we have a company that doesn't necessarily want magazines.
we're just trying to get
But
money
that's-
on something with little value versus something that could have a lot of value. And that's what this is about. It's about trying to figure out, okay, how much value does the other things that's going through there have? And is it worth collecting those over some of these other items? Maybe consolidate those other items to a smaller list and then maybe expand this other category into a larger one.
Or go to single stream.
Okay, so back to,
I just wanted to ask, I saw that there's a conference at Sanderson. coming.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that after.
Yeah, is any of this part of that conference?
No, Danny's not, but.
presented there in the past.
The material for
Did you?
resource recovery, yeah, I think my first year.
Oh, you did?
I did, yeah, yeah,
So,
with students actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
But there isn't this year, there isn't a program.
I don't think there's a reuse component over there, but I think, we can talk about it after, but I think you guys should, if you wanna go, you should go, it's worth it.
They usually have some presenter that
Yeah.
is talking about that, and they have a huge, it's pretty fun, because they have all of these, it's like a trade show wherever their booths, and it's all.
Yeah.
It's, the Goodwill will be there, and Eco Maine, and lots of other, for people that like this kind of thing, it's pretty fun, actually.
The apparel place.
The apparel impact, it's Flexi Clothes.
You'll like it.
Oh, yeah, you will.
You would love it.
okay, back to, the agenda items, have you finished your presentation?
Yes,
Okay. Are there any other questions for him? Nobody has any other questions? Dave, do we need to make a motion to have you draw something up? Okay, so I feel the motion should be to instruct the facility manager to process the proper paperwork to move this request forward, and we'll vote on it next, the next meeting.
I'd like
Is that gonna
to-
be soon enough?
Yeah, no, I'd like to,
What, let's just do it.
I'd like to authorize them to finalize the contract or.
Yeah.
Enter
And the
into
number is 20,000?
Let's say up to,
Do you
up to 20,000 to,
Can you make the motion now?
okay, sure.
On the phone?
I move to authorize the facility director to, enter into a contract with, second story builders for up to $20,000 to fulfill the scope of work and deliverables specified in the statement of work. And
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
this is so exciting.
You guys, I'm telling you right now, this is gonna work.
That's great.
This is so cool.
This is gonna work and it's only gonna grow.
We're finally in a
And-
place where we can.
They're gonna read about us.
Yeah.
Paper.
Yeah, this is.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Notify Steve Betts.
No, people are gonna love this. This is,
Oh, yeah.
this is awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially in this time when, you know, we're looking at things just skyrocketing in price, there's gonna be a value to collecting this material. Maybe the rich, super rich won't need to buy this stuff, but there's gonna be a lot of other people like that live in this community that are gonna be able to access these things. Yeah.
No, they will, because these people, a lot of the time, they need like the faucet from the
I'm sure there'll
mattress,
be that too, but
there is,
there's
there's
like
like,
different levels of it, you know?
this is high-end
Let's,
stuff too.
let's get this study done
Yes.
first.
You have, I mean, I'm telling you, the stuff that goes through there
I believe it.
is crazy. It's just, it really is, there's a lot of things that go through there that have a lot of value.
I've seen you on Antiques Roadshow.
I'm telling you, I've been seeing it for what, for 15, 16 years now.
Yeah.
You know, it's just amazing.
plus people are also craving something good happening in the
Mhm.
world, and
Exactly.
I think that, it's time.
People, this is the one thing, like, people are like, oh, all that stuff Allison talks about is, you know, they're like, but they're like.
Well,
"At
it's
least
still
she's
gonna
doing
say-
this." No, but
it's still
this
gonna
is
say-
not, this is, people are always like, that's great that she's standing up for like, you know, trying to extract stuff from the waste stream. It's a, you know, getting things out of the trash that have value is a very, you know, neutral political thing.
yeah.
People are positive.
And what it's teaching the kids and what the opportunities it's offering.
And thank you, Dave,
Thank you.
too, for this, doing this kind of stuff is more work invariably for the people that are running facilities to try to do something. So much easier just to say, oh, we're just gonna, the reason we can't do this is because of this, and so the work, cultivating a relationship with Danny and trying new things, he's not even looking at. like-
No, I am, I'm listening, and you know, you're right, it's a
It
lot
is really
easier, but I'm not here to do things easier, I'm here to make a difference in the facility. That's really what it boils down to, it's not about, if I wanted to do something easier, I probably
We're
would
making
be
a
doing
difference
something
beyond
different.
Oh, yeah. you're
Okay,
right.
so if there's no more for Danny, and Danny, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you
This
all.
is a worthwhile situation and we're gonna push it forward.
Fantastic, I really appreciate it for the opportunity, I'm excited to get to work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's anything.
Congratulations.
Help with, let us know. Okay, next item on the agenda, I think if everybody has read the finance committee report, are there any questions?
Is that anything to ask?
What's that? What's that?
I would just, I thought you were being really funny, there's.
I am not being funny at all.
What did you think of the finance committee report?
We are good.
Oh, you mean the financials, okay, you're not
The
really.
finance,
There is no,
finance committee report, that's what it says right on the agenda.
no, that's not the finance committee report. I was about to say, there is, sorry, guys, there is no
Okay.
finance
Let
committee
me back
report.
that up.
But we do, yeah, I
After
actually. worked really
having
hard
read
on
the
this.
financials. Oh,
We're looking at, that's the report.
yes, does anybody have any questions on the financial as presented?
Dave asked me, like, are you gonna do finance committee report? And I was like. I think we're just gonna look at it.
If there are no more questions, and if there's nothing else to add, Dave,
I have two things.
okay?
Okay, the MRRA conference is coming
Okay.
up. And if you folks wanna go, I suggest you go, cause it's pretty cool.
Alright.
And it's the only time you're gonna go and see just about all the people that are involved in solid waste in one place at the same time, with all the contractors, vendors, and keynote speakers and regulators. And it's at the same set. And I'll just say this, most people
Oh, shoot.
don't expect what's there. It's the total, it's not what you would expect, you know, it's
not the vote, so.
it's not, it is better than the boat show, okay? That's just my, huh?
What is, I know that.
We need to know.
Well, we need to know, that's why I'm telling you.
Like to know tomorrow, but. we can talk.
And if there's a meal, there's, you know, you can pick one day or the other, if you go to the first session, I think there's supper with that one, right, Beth?
No, the last night is dinner with awards, I think, but, the first night is, I think, for vendors.
Okay,
But then there's lunches, there are lunches each day, and dinner, I think.
did you print off the
I
agenda?
think mine away.
Oh, okay,
Right,
so
It's
if you could get back to us within a day or two,
yeah,
here they are.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, to us. You guys can sign us up for.
We'll sign you guys up, and
No, we would,
There's all kinds
see through,
of informative sessions that you can go to,
you know, if you're interested.
Pretty cool, yeah, it is a cool thing, yeah, I looked at the.
Allison is-
Is that what it is?
No, I'm out of town.
What's that?
When Josh was the chair, he was
You got
going
one,
morning and he was going after.
There.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then the other thing is, that for some reason, I can't see it, the management report, I'm looking through it, the date of the hazardous waste collection.
It is
Sunday.
Sunday,
So
May
that's,
18th.
that's the
9
big
to
difference,
noon.
that's the big difference.
We're
We've
doing it in
changed.
May?
We're doing 2 this year.
All right.
And we're doing it because that was the best we could do, doing it on a Sunday. They didn't like us changing it from a Saturday to a Sunday. But we're doing it different this year because we don't want to have an impact on the people using the facility. And you know, the line going all the way down Union Street. So we're gonna do it just a standalone hazardous waste collection on a Sunday all by itself.
Sunday, May.
And it's May.
And it's in May.
But we're gonna do 2.
We're gonna do 2. We're gonna do one this budget year and one in the fall at the end of the year. Okay, so that's better than we've
Oh,
ever
okay, all
done.
right.
So that captures, you know, I would think most people,
Yeah, I mean, and it's, the June one is too many to,
right?
so we can get some of the people through that
Yeah.
are available in May, maybe there'll be more room in the fall.
I think it's 9 to 12:30, it's on the morning.
9 to 12:30.
Why is May bad?
Anything else, Dave?
My wife and I are bicycling the canal in France.
That sounds
Well,
good.
you know,
I-
you could gather everything up and leave a blank check.
Yeah.
Maybe one of us.
We can take care of it for you.
yourself.
We'll figure it,
Yeah, you want me to drop some off, we have.
yeah, I got my son to come by.
The Doors have been planning their vacations around Household Hazardous Waste Day.
That's
for,
right.
Not changing vacation.
I think what you got planned is gonna be way fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool.
If there's nothing else, I will entertain a final motion.
I have I just sort of, I heard a rumor on April 23rd. Is
Oh,
that,
right, that is a great point.
thank you, did you want to?
Is that this, oh, you're not gonna say it, are you?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we are, yeah. Could you elaborate, because I only just heard a little bit about this, but I understand that you have been nominated for the, is it Franco-American?
Franco-American Hall of Fame, I was nominated by Vicky Dudera and going to Augusta
Yep,
for this week-long celebration. It's only one day and I don't know what to expect. I had to look it up myself. I didn't know such a thing existed.
yep,
My one relative left, my father's side, I texted him, he's living in Kansas. I said, yeah, I'm getting into the Franco-American, Hall of Fame, and he's like, well, congratulations, you're the only Saint Laurent that's ever gotten an award. So,
So
So
it's
what-
one of
what
those things
carpool?
where Vicky, I have to look, I don't know if she gave us the times and stuff, it's a save the date kind of thing, but she said it would be great if as many people from Camden or the Midco Solid Waste communities, as possible could go to Augusta for this day, so.
and
Well,
and I
thank
think
you.
I heard 10 o'clock,
Oh, okay, great.
I think we should
We'll send-
follow up on it, but
I guess it's a great honor. I mean, I feel privileged that someone nominated me.
I was impressed, I think it's a
Yeah,
great.
well, thank you. Yeah.
10 AM, you said?
April 23rd is what I remember.
You know, I tell everybody this story after they say it. I was the kid that, like, when they sang happy birthday, I was like, oh, you know?
Wanting to slide under
Let's
the
see,
table.
hold on, I wanna look this up real quick here.
Yeah,
They're,
when they told me about it, I thought they were kidding. I said, you know.
oh yeah, 10 AM, okay, excuse, I have the details. Please spread the word that our own Dave St. Laurent is being inducted into the Maine Franco-American Hall of Fame on April 23rd at the State House. The ceremony will be at 10 AM. You'll want to arrive a little earlier. I hope a big contingent of townspeople can come.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's really
21st
cool.
at 30.
23rd.
This is close to knighthood.
The next year, you're gonna get your MBE.
This will be close to knighthood.
Oh, my God.
Move to adjourn.
I've got a motion to
I'm
adjourn.
not getting a
Do I
second.
hear a
so-
second?
Second,
Okay. All those in favor?
And thank you. for a
Thank you
lovely-
very much.
yeah.
Did you move?
I did.
Second.
I think we just made history today. No, I'm telling you, this is the beginning of something big.